Have you ever walked past someone on the street and wondered how they got there? It was one of those afternoons in downtown Chicago where the sky threatened rain but never quite delivered. The sidewalks were busy, people lost in their own world, moving with purpose or with nowhere to go at all. And somewhere in between was JD Vance. He wasn't in a suit, wasn't standing on a podium. Just another guy walking past aging storefronts, dodging scooters left abandoned on the sidewalk. But even dressed casually, people noticed him. Some whispered his name, recognizing him from TV, from headlines. Others just saw another man blending into the city. And in that moment, that's all he wanted to be. Then a voice broke through the hum of the streets. "Hey man, can you spare $1? A simple request." One Vance had heard before. We all have. Most people keep walking, maybe offer a polite shake of the head. But something about this one made him stop. Maybe it was the hesitation in the man's voice. He wasn't used to asking. Maybe it was the way he didn't quite make eye contact. The man was thin, not just the kind of thin that comes from missing meals, but the kind that hollows out your cheeks, makes your eyes look too big for your face. His clothes, layered in a way that had nothing to do with style and everything to do with survival. His beard patchy, not by choice. Hands cracked from the cold. He wasn't aggressive, wasn't insistent, just waiting. Like he'd asked 1,000 times before and expected nothing. Vance stopped. "What's your name?" The man blinked. That wasn't how this was supposed to go. Usually it was either $1 in the palm or a stranger walking away. He hesitated before muttering, "Marcus." People passed by without a second glance, just another exchange between a politician and a man most people ignore. But Vance didn't move. He just studied Marcus, something keeping him rooted where he stood. Maybe it was the way Marcus held himself. Not desperate, just exhausted. Maybe it was the quiet dignity in the way he asked for help, without demanding, without performing. "You live around here, Marcus." A short, humourless laugh. "I live wherever I can. You know how it is." Vance nodded, but he didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he asked, "How long have you been out here?" Marcus shifted, glancing toward the street, like he was weighing whether to keep talking or just walk away. Vance exhaled. He could feel eyes on him now. Someone had stopped nearby, maybe listening, maybe recording. It didn't matter. What he said next would. "What would you do with $1? Marcus let out a half scoff, half laugh. "Ain't that the question?" But Vance wasn't joking. $1 don't get you much these days," Marcus said after a pause. "Maybe a coffee, maybe some bread if you know where to go." He hesitated, then added quietly, "Or maybe just a moment where I don't feel like nothing." And that hit different. It wasn't defensive, it wasn't begging, it was just honest. Vance's jaw tightened. He looked at Marcus's hands again, shifting in his jacket pockets. "You used to work?" Marcus chuckled bitterly. "Yeah, before life got in the way." "What was the job?" "Plumber. Not the fancy kind. Just fixing leaks, replacing busted water heaters." He shook his head. "Ain't much demand for a guy who don't got a fixed address, though." Vance nodded. He knew this story. He'd heard it before. Some people fall through the cracks so fast they don't even have time to brace for impact. Marcus rubbed his chin. "So, you gonna give me $1 or what?" Vance didn't reach for his wallet. Instead, he said, "I'll give you something better." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Man, I ain't asking for a sermon. It's not a sermon." The city noise seemed to quiet, as if the world was waiting to see what happened next. Marcus shifted his weight. Conversations like this usually ended with lectures about bootstraps and personal responsibility. He braced for the same. But Vance just asked, "When's the last time someone gave you a real shot?" Marcus frowned. "What? Like a job?" "Like anything." Marcus blinked, looked past Vance, searching for an answer in the cityscape. After a long moment, he shook his head. "Been a while." Vance nodded like he already knew the answer. You ever try to get off the streets? Marcus scoffed. Man, what kind of question is that? You think I want to be out here? Marcus continued. You think this is a choice? I tried shelters, half of them full before I even got in the door. Tried work. You know what they tell me? Come back when you got a phone. Come back when you got an address. He shook his head. I could pull that out of thin air. Vance just listened. Marcus sighed. You ever been homeless? No, Vance admitted. Marcus smirked. Didn't think so. But I've been poor. That made Marcus look at him differently. Still sceptical, but maybe less dismissive. Vance nodded. Grew up in a house where sometimes the heat didn't work, where the fridge was mostly empty. Marcus sniffed. Bet you had a way out. Took a while. A silence stretched between them. Around them, the small crowd had grown. Someone with a baseball cap was recording. A woman whispered to her friend. Marcus exhaled sharply. So what? You going to tell me to work harder? No. Then what? Vance reached into his pocket, not for money, but for a folded piece of paper. He held it out. Marcus eyed it. What's that? A name. A number. For what? Someone who can help. Marcus scoffed. Right. Ain't that easy? No, it's not. But it's real. Marcus hesitated. He'd heard empty promises before. But something in Vance's face, serious, no sales pitch, made him pause. Why are you doing this? Marcus asked. Vance's answer was simple. Because someone once did it for me. Not everyone agreed with what was happening. Someone in the crowd scoffed. This is all for show. Vance met the man's glare. You think I did this for attention? Ain't that what politicians do? Vance didn't argue. He just said, what I did today doesn't change just because people are watching. A woman called out, so what happens now? Marcus looked down at the paper, then at the cheap burner phone in his pocket. He swallowed hard. Guess I make a call. And that was it. Just a first step. Just hope. Not every opportunity comes in the form we expect. Some don't come at all. But when they do, when someone reaches out and says, I see you, the hardest part isn't taking the help. It's believing you deserve it. So what do we learn from this story? We learn that kindness isn't about grand, flashy gestures. It's about noticing people, truly seeing them, and offering what we can, even when it seems small. A simple conversation, a single opportunity, or just a moment of belief in someone can be the spark that reignites their hope. We learn that opportunity doesn't always come in the way we expect. Sometimes it's not a job listing or a formal interview. It's a chance encounter, an unexpected kindness, or a stranger who sees potential in us when we can't see it ourselves. And perhaps most importantly, we learn that the hardest thing isn't always giving help, it's accepting it. What would you do? If you enjoyed the story and found it meaningful, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and the lessons you've learned in the comments below. Your insights could inspire someone